Welcome to the Cybersecurity Summit podcast at Summit Conversation.
For all of you, Judy is a vice president and the chief information security officer for Secure Strips and Scripts, I should say. Judy's been a mentor to me when I was looking around at different companies and different options, and she gave me insight. She's very well thought of in the security community here, and she's been very, very involved in the cybersecurity conference, leading the overall program and co-leading the gala and being involved in different sessions. So I'd like to hand it over to Judy to give us an overview of her experience in the security space. Before then, you guys have an opportunity to ask her questions. And Judy, I should mention that we have an intern group this year with interns from all over the globe, from Turkey and from Morocco and from Spain and the US, but a really interesting group of individuals. So it's exciting.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to spend a little bit of time with me, but how exciting that we've expanded our intern program to be global. This is a first for the first 5 years that I've been a part of the Cybersecurity Summit. So congratulations to all of you for being a part of this as well. I will tell you that I'm very jealous that you have the opportunity to be an intern in an information security or cybersecurity event. When I started out in cybersecurity a long time ago, that was not even available to us. So you guys really have an opportunity and a gem of an opportunity to be a part of this, because you get to make contact with so many amazing people. So as Michelle had stated, I am a CISO. I am currently the Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer at SureScripts. I'm based here in Minneapolis. Our organization is responsible for the nation's United States only largest e-prescribing business. So if you've ever been to the doctor in the United States and the doctor says, "Where do you want me to send your prescription?" and you say, send it down to Walgreens on First. Once it leaves the doctor's office and goes across the internet, once it hits the internet, it goes across my network before it gets to the pharmacy. So we do roughly 30 billion transactions a year. So we have a lot of EPHI so there's a lot of restricted data that I am responsible, my team and I are responsible for protecting. And so in my role as the CISO here at SureScripts, this is actually my second CISO role. I've been in the information security world for about 18 years, and I've covered international to domestic to retail to manufacturing, healthcare. And so this is my second healthcare CISO role. Prior to this, I was the CISO at Fairview Health Services here in Minneapolis. SureScripts is actually based out of Arlington, Virginia, but we have an office here in Minneapolis and one in Portland, Oregon, and one in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I have 18 people on my team, actually 17. I'm actually just losing another person, another intern that was part of this group. She's actually going to go to Optum, so I'm very sad, but she's an amazing person, and she's going to do them well. She's going to do very well there. I have 18 people on my team, and I am responsible for we call the red team. So if you're not familiar with the red team is your ethical hackers. So I have an ethical hacking team that reports up through me. We also use an outside party to help us with our penetration testing, but I do have two on my team. So it's a lot of fun. Actually 3, because the director is a former Red Hatter as well. And so it's a lot of fun having those type of skill sets on your team, because you could do some pretty crazy threat hunting and exercises under the table and trying to just test some of your security controls. I also have the blue team. The blue team is your insider threat team. They're the ones that are looking for all of the threats in your environment. They're the ones that are reacting to the CrowdStrike alerts. They're looking in Splunk and looking at logging data. They're also the ones that are dealing with email threats. So when we get phishing emails in, they're the ones that are dealing with them. They're also dealing with some of the other nefarious activities that could be seen on some type of a network. Along with that, I have a workforce identity and access management team. So if you're not sure what that is, when you became an intern, I'm assuming somebody from Eileen's department gave you an ID and password to log into some system of theirs so that you could do work for her. And that ID and password is actually identity and access management. You were provisioned an account that's given specifically to you to give you permissions into different systems to do work. And then you also have a password that you use to protect that and probably some form of multi-factor authentication. That is all part of an identity and access management program. So we are in our third year of having our program here at SureScripts, and that team went from a team of one person and one contractor to now we are 3 people. So that's huge because we actually converted our contractor into a full-time employee. And then we're losing one of our headcount on there that's going to another company, but we'll backfill her. And then I have a governance, risk, and compliance team. And governance, risk, and compliance is your policies and procedures. Somebody that develops and writes your policies and procedures and helps you educate them. So training and awareness. So you want to educate your organization on what are your IT information security policies and standards. How do you know what you can and cannot do from an information security standpoint? And this also incorporates your risk assessment. So when you're in an organization and you have third-party partners, like your payroll department or your HR department that uses a tool called Workday, that is a third party. So you want to do a risk assessment to make sure that whoever you're letting onto your network or the tools that you're using on your network have the same type of security posture that you do internally to protect your employees' data and even your customers' data. So that's called third-party risk assessment. We also have project risk assessment because in any organization you have projects that happen. And so you want to make sure you understand the projects that the work is being done in your organization and understand if that will have an impact on your security or your overall security posture. And then I have another unique area that reports up to me. It's called e-prescribing fraud. And so because we are the nation's largest e-prescribing network, we do have e-prescribing fraud on our network. And so I have a team that is dedicated to assisting our customers in the investigation process when they notify us of potential fraud. And that fraud would be a doctor's identity has been stolen and now somebody is prescribing illegally on the network for the bad actor gains. And then I also have a dotted line architecture security architect that reports to me. So I have somebody that actually works with a lot of our projects to help design secure solutions. And then I also am responsible for enterprise risk management. So not just from a cyber perspective, but overall for the enterprise, I look at all of the risks that we have identified that make up our enterprise risk register. And along with our governance, risk, and compliance department, they're responsible for making sure that all of our external audits, I don't know if any of you've heard of High Trust or SOC 2, we have to be High Trust or SOC 2 certified. So we have audits that we do all year round every year. And so there's a team that works with our external auditors as well. So along with that, I am also a team of the vice president's team here at SureScripts. And so there's like 24 vice presidents that we all meet on a regular basis and get to know each other, figure out how we can work well together. I do readouts to the board. So I'm actually just preparing for my board readouts here in a couple of weeks. I just had my first pre-read with our CEO, and I've got a bunch of changes I have to make to my deck before I can get it sent out to the board. So that's also the fun part of being a CISO is you get to do a lot of PowerPoint presentations and then you get to really practice your public speaking. So if you ever want to be a CISO, you cannot be afraid to get up and talk to people and have a conversation with very, very powerful people. You have to figure out how to overcome that, what I will call stage fright, and be able to have meaningful conversations, because in some of those conversations, you're going to be talking about how do you get budget? How do you get money to buy the tools? How do you convince them to give you more headcount? How do you have the tough conversations of things that are happening in your organization that you need to get prioritization on to get fixed? So you have to be comfortable having those conversations, being able to articulate and speak to those people, as well as being able to tell a story. I don't know if you guys have heard that probably from other ones you've talked to, but being able to tell a story around what you're presenting, because you don't want to get up in front of a board team, a boardroom of people or your executive team and just read off the slides. No one wants that. They want you to be able to don't read everything word for word, tell the story about why it's meaningful to them. So that is my job. I've been doing this now, like I said, coming up on 6 years. I have been doing this, I'm sorry, 5 years doing this role, but I've been in information security for, like I said, about 18. So I've either had IT general controls, I've had identity and access management, I've had a lot of budget responsibilities, policies and standards, a lot of international work around how do you build out programs. I've built out multiple programs within different organizations. I am also the president of the Minnesota Women in Cyber Affiliation. So if you, it's open for everybody. If you're looking for a way to learn to network, get additional training, help advance you in your career, get access to resources that you probably wouldn't have access to, look up wicis.org, WICYS.org. That is the national chapter. And actually it's an international organization and it's not just for females. And I am the Minnesota affiliate president. So we're partnering with the Cybersecurity Summit. You've probably seen it. I think, Alex, were you part of our meeting this week? And Abigail, you were. I know you've been helping with us. We have a Women in Cyber Day that is the day before the Cybersecurity Summit. And so I've been a part of that program since we kicked it off a little over 4 years ago. And so we used to have just a half day. Last year was our first full day for Women in Cyber. And then this year we're having another full day as well. So it's a really great opportunity. So if you do have an opportunity, it's free. If you do have an opportunity to attend and listen in, we have some great speakers lined up for that too. And which, by the way, Eileen, I might have a sponsor for Jamie's presentation. I will know maybe today or tomorrow. Yeah, it's awesome. And so we do a lot of fun things with the Women in Cyber group. We actually do different affiliation. We do different events. Tonight, actually, we have our big members only wine tasting event that we're putting together. But so I'm really busy with that as well. And I am sit on a couple of advisory boards as well for different organizations. And I just actually did one of our vendors that I work with. I actually did a fireside chat with them yesterday as part of their sales kickoff. So it was a lot of fun because they wanted to know how to sell to CISOs, what works, what doesn't work, giving them some ideas around how to sell their products and how to get in front of security people. So with that, I will stop talking. Oh, by the way, actually, I am a mother of 3, and I have 2 dogs and 3 cats. So, oh, and a horse, but I let my daughter have the horse. So with that, I'll stop talking. And if you guys have questions for me, I'm happy to answer just about anything. And don't be shy.
Hey, Judy, can I start first of all by saying thank you? She is hosting a big event tonight and she's still doing this afternoon. So, you know, she's truly, truly amazing. You know, you've made it to the top, yet you are so incredibly involved helping develop people, grow people. Talk to us about during the course of our careers, the importance of staying involved in different associations and things, and how has that helped you get to your position, and why do you stay so involved now? And thank you very much for it.
Yes, I think one of the most important things I tell any person that I have conversations with or anybody that I mentor is that you really need to build your network. And I really mean that seriously. You have to take time to sit down, have coffee with somebody, sit down, have a Teams conversation with them, go to an event and get yourself out of your comfort zone and go talk to people. And just really make that connection. Just introduce yourself. Make sure you understand like what it is when you go to an event. You know, maybe it's just 1 or 2 things you want to accomplish. Maybe you want to walk away with having one person's agreement to do a LinkedIn connection with them and then reach out from there to maybe get to know them better. The more you work on your network now, as you're just starting out in your career, is going to help you so much along the way. And I will tell you from experience, I did not do that. I did not do that in the beginning of my career. I did it at a point in your career where I went, wait a minute, I'm missing out on a lot. I need to start taking time and really investing my time to get to know people and to build up. Like I had a very small network, but not to where I have it today. And it is uncomfortable. I've been doing this, like I said, I've been doing this for 18 years. I'm in some very amazing women CISO groups. I have been involved in a lot of fun events. Women in Cyber was a really big thing for me to get involved in. But I've put myself out there into areas where I'm not necessarily comfortable and just started having those conversations. Because what's going to happen over time, the more you get to know somebody and opportunities arise along the way, they're going to remember you and they're going to go, you know what? I have a person that you should go talk to. You need to go talk to this person because they're looking for this. I think you'd be a great fit. Or you know what? The culture at this company is awesome. You should keep an eye out and see if anything opens in that company. And if something does, let me know. I'll put in a good word for you. That is the power of your network. And I cannot stress it enough. And this is one thing that I have been so pleased with, like at the Cybersecurity Summit, as well as the Women National Women in Cyber event that they always have their annual meeting, is just the empowerment that you get when you walk into those sessions and just turn around and just say hi, just talk, strike up a small conversation, whatever that will be. It's uncomfortable. Believe me, I know it. Even though I have these conversations and I talk to a lot of people, and I'm going to go have this event tonight, I will guarantee you, by the time I get home tonight, I am exhausted. It takes a lot out of me, but you get so much in return. And besides, it's a lot of fun, but you make a lot of great connections. I'm still amazed at some of the women that are in some of my other groups. Like I was talking to Lucia Maleka. She used to be the in-house Proofpoint CISO, and now she is taking an outside position outside of Proofpoint. But yet she pulled together, she found out that some of the CISOs in our women's CISO group were going to be in Colorado, or actually, they weren't going to be in Colorado. They were going to be, I can't what country they were going to be in. They were all going to be there within a couple of hours. And so they all agreed to meet up and meet in person because they had only met virtually in our once every 2 weeks meetings that we have. So she took the initiative to pull that all together, which to me, I think is amazing and empowering. And I wish I had some of that guts to do some of that. And that's why I aspire to do that. But when you get to have these conversations or you get to know these people and have these connections, and if you do make a connection with someone at an event, and you ask them, can I connect with you on LinkedIn? Always remind them when you make that connection on LinkedIn, where you met them. Add some context in there because they're more apt to accept you as the LinkedIn person if they know where they've talked to you and what the conversation was. I know that's how I operate. When people say, can I connect with you on LinkedIn? I'm like, yes, but please tell me we had this conversation when you reach out to me. Otherwise, I typically don't accept the exceptions just blindly. So, but it's a great point, Eileen, and very, very important to do. And if it's not, look for other organizations. There are a ton of organizations out there. There's Cyversity, there's Executive Women's Forum. There's a lot of different cyber organizations. Just even being a part of this group here, view yourselves as a cohort. And I hope that you all stay in contact with each other through your career. And as you're talking to the CISOs like me, leverage us, reach out to us, shoot us an email and say, hey, I got this question. I don't know what to do, or I have this. Can you help me with this? We are always willing to help. I will tell you that if you send me an email, don't expect an immediate response. It may be 3 or 4 days, but I will get back to you. But please take advantage of all of these connections that you're making with the CISOs right now and each other as well. And Eileen, because Eileen is very, very, very well connected, and Michelle is too. So.
All right, I have a quick question.
Yes.
So, Judy, what sort of training would you recommend for the interns if they want to get in, well, since they do want to get into cyber?
I would say pick your passion of, there are so many things that you can do in cyber, whether it's policy writing, technical writing, policy and standard writing, or it is threat hunting, learning how to use Splunk, learning how to use Logarithm, learning how to use data lakes, learning how to do automation with Python or Xor, or scripting with any other type of scripting tool that's out there. Is it something around identity and access management? Like look up the different pillars when you're looking at cybersecurity. There's so much there. It's not just about hacking. That's not it. You can be an ethical hacker. I will tell you, if you can write code, you can be an ethical hacker because you understand that. So to tell you exactly which piece of training, I couldn't tell you. It's really look at all the different pillars. Like if you grab the CISSP book and you read and you looked at all the domains and you go, I really think I like this domain, that's where you should start looking to do training. Because it's different all the way across the board. It really is.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
But do not forget the public speaking part. That is critical. No matter what role you're in, you have to be able to have a conversation with your customers, whoever your customers may be.
Hi, Judy. I'm Hugo. I'm a Spanish intern. I'm
Nice to
actually
meet you.
interning at UPS. I'm doing vendor risk assessment, third party, as you mentioned. And I was actually in a call the other day with some senior directors there at UPS, and we were discussing the different domains. Um, with the current change in cyber and how everything is growing right now, especially for example UPS. I remember around 10 to 15 years ago there was a group of 10 to 20 people, and now we're almost 300. So it's amazing. I was wondering if you see any perhaps need in certain departments within information security. Do you think that there was also a question whether you should specialize on something, for example, GRC, or you should go into pen testing, or rather just explore the different domains, as you said, in cybersecurity? Do you know any particular field within this industry that will be needed in the future years?
When you look at information security, all pieces of information security are going to be needed. So it could be third-party risk assessments, it could be pen testing, it could be threat hunting, it could be just learning how to do detection and respond. So they're all major. Any place that you look within cyber, there's always going to be a field. What I think you're also asking me, Hugo, if I understand it correctly, is there an opportunity where you can go to get all of those variations of the different fields that are in cybersecurity? And I would tell you that there are organizations that have entry-level programs that give you the opportunity to do almost like an internship, but it's not, you're an employee, but you spend like 6 weeks doing incident response. You spend 6 weeks doing third-party risk. You do, 6 weeks doing policy writing. There are organizations that do that, not many. I actually literally just heard, I was listening to, this is a really good website to go to and a very good podcast to listen to if you're looking for stuff on security. It's called the CISO Executives, the CISO series. And the CISOseries.com has a podcast, and they're 28 to 30 minutes. But I just listened to the Amtrak CISO this morning, and he actually has a program that they are always looking for people, and they do have individual development plans to progress you through different stages of cybersecurity. So Amtrak is one of them. I know Optum does the same thing. And I know, Michelle, I know when I was at 3M, we had done a whole bunch of job classification and different areas. And I don't know if they still have that at 3M, where if you started out in one place,
Yeah, they don't have a program like that. You have 6 to 8 weeks and then you go to the next thing. We do, though, as Judy mentioned, there's so many different areas, and what I've been most used to at the places I've worked is it's really on the individual. You get into the company, you gain some experience, and you try to surround yourself too with where you have interests, and you pursue those, even if it's just shadowing a team. Your manager has to approve that and all of that, but it gives you a sense for what something would be like. For instance, one of my staff members really wanted to get into vulnerability management, so I worked with that team and allowed that person to shadow some of those technologies to see how they gathered the scope that should be scanned, running the scans, and then the big work effort is following up with the scan results. And so they're remediated, in the time frame buckets per your policy or standard. So I think if you can take advantage of if you're aware of companies that are progressive in that, and really try to let a person have a career path in their interests.
Yeah, and that's part of it too, as you're building your network and you start having inquiries.
And Nancy, you might want to, or Michelle, you might want to turn down your volume a little bit.
Is you get the opportunity.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You get the opportunity to do some job shadowing and understanding what you want to do. But I would tell you, The other thing, actually, one of the things that Michelle was talking about that just triggered a memory for me is, when you have these skill sets or you're looking to see what it is you want to do, you also have to have some other knowledge around what is a network. How do networks operate? If you want to be very, very technical, you still need some of that knowledge to be able to write a good policy as well. And you also need some of that knowledge to be able, and Hugo, you're probably seeing in your third-party risk assessments where you have to understand how the product is being used. So you know how you to assess the risk and the data that's being transferred around during that vendor engagement. The other thing that I would tell you is if you really want to be on the purely technical side, you have to understand how the operating systems work. You have to understand how Linux works. You have to understand how Windows works. You have to know how to log into a Windows server and what that means. When we've interviewed for some of our entry-level roles, and we said, well, what is your favorite part of information security? What do you really want to look at? And they go, well, I like phishing emails. Well, cybersecurity is way more than just a phishing email. Phishing is just one small aspect of information security. Did that answer your question, Hugo, around to Michelle and I?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Okay.
Judy, you just mentioned when you interview for a position. Do you have any tips for how to practice for interviewing?
I would make sure you know the company that you're interviewing with. Do your research on the organization. And if when you're interviewing in the information security department, go find the CISO on LinkedIn and then see if you can figure out who the connections are, like the other people in the departments, because you're going to be interviewing probably more than just the hiring manager. So a little bit that about the people that you are interviewing with, and then practice answering some questions in front of the mirror, because you're going to be uncomfortable doing it in front of a mirror. But I guarantee you, it really calms the nerves once you have to go in and actually have that virtual meeting, even when you're doing the interview. Do not read from a script when you're in the interview. I was interviewing a candidate about 6 weeks ago. Never made eye contact with me. You still need to make eye contact with people when you're having the conversations virtually. And I could tell the reason he wasn't making eye contact is because he was reading a script that was down below his screen. Please don't do that. It does not give me, as the interviewer, any confidence that you really know what you're interviewing for, or what the subject that you're doing. Try to relax, but I would say do your homework. Don't expect to walk in there and to be able to say, oh, I'm just going to wing this. No, do your homework. Make sure that if you're interviewing for a vulnerability management position, do some research on the vulnerability management tools so that you know how to ask. Are you using Tenable? Are you using Rapid7? Ask those do the research to know what the tools are for the position that you are applying for. That's going to show initiative. It's going to show curiosity. Ask questions. Come into that prepared with questions. Ask them about the culture. Ask them about, do you have the opportunity to have an individual development plan? Will you help me if I start building my development plan, if I'm hired? How will you help me achieve my goals? That shows that you have initiative and that you have drive to want to be more. Talk about just what is expected of the position. Be curious when you're in the interviewing process, but do your homework. That's really key. And especially for our organization, like SureScripts, I'm always amazed when people come in and ask me questions about the organization. We're not an easy company to figure out. And so if they do a little bit of homework and do a little bit of research, it helps. And Hind, I think you were going to have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. Actually, I have two questions. The first one is, I'm really interested in identity and access management, and I'm requested actually to prepare a training for students in cybersecurity. So I would like to ask you about the main points I should focus on, and maybe the training tools or approaches I should introduce to my students. Second question. What is your advice for someone who wants to, or someone who is seeking to start his own business in security?
Oh,
thank you.
Let me clarify something on the first question. You are looking to get into identity and access management. Are you building the curriculum that you're talking about around identity and access management, or around cybersecurity in general?
Actually, no, about IAM.
Okay.
Just the main point and trending tools, because I actually in internet I found many tools. I don't know what is the trending tools that my students may be requested to know in companies or in enterprises. So
Okay.
thank you.
So for identity and access management, there's a lot of really great, are you a student now today?
No, I'm professor, so I'm requested to prepare a training and to prepare a course for my students. So
Okay.
I'm just, thank you.
Okay. So there's a lot of really good information out on, on the web around information around identity and access management. You could look up, you want to talk to them about what it is. So you want to talk about the authentication process, the authorization process, the audit process, because the audit process is also very key. And just there, I'd have to go back and look it up. I'm not, I have my other monitor, I actually have my 6 A's for identity and access management on my monitor. So Michelle, if you remember, it's authorization, access, authorization, authentication, audit, and I'm drawing the blank. But you want to, if you look up the guiding principles for identity and access management on the web, you want to talk about that. You want to talk about provisioning and deprovisioning, whether that's manual or it is automated. And if it's automated, the tools that you use would be like, you look up like a SailPoint. SailPoint's a very big provisioning tool. Saviynt is another one. I'm trying to think of there's a lot of startups out there too. But understanding exactly what does it mean to have an identity and access management program, why it's important to the business. You'll find sometimes that when you develop a program, you want to pick an easy target to get the biggest return on your investment because it's an expensive program to implement. And you look at like password resets. Password resets, when you automate the password reset function, what does that mean? There's metrics that you can gain around that to help build the business case for your program. You want to talk about source systems. Your source system is where all the attributes and the information about the identities that you're going to create and provision come from. So your source system, most cases, it is your HR system that is going to be your source system. So you're going to get data and understand that flow and be able to educate your students on what that looks like. Sometimes it's an Active Directory or an LDAP that's your source system that feeds then into your tool or your manual process to be able to provision access. There's terminology around connected systems. What does it mean to have a connected system? When you have your identity process, if you're doing a tool, your tool will connect via APIs to Workday, ServiceNow, Active Directory, Office 365, all your different applications and provision access. If it's manual, then you have to understand, okay, I've got the data. Now I have to go and create this account. So I have to create the identity in some type of user access list in this system and then assign them the permissions or the roles that they need. So it's your tools that you're going to use, whether it's manual, the roles, the entitlements, the permissions that you would want to provision. Michelle, did you want to say something?
I was just going to blend in there, the attestation reviews, and that gets to the audit that Judy was saying. And my experience with identity and access management, this was one of my accountabilities quite a while ago, but the big tricky part is all the system interfaces for the identity and access management tools to integrate with, and the rule sets, and it's just there's a lot of nuances and intricacies to really make it work well. It's not an easy thing to just slam in and then turn it on.
I will tell you that where I'm at, it took 6 years for us to get our program up and running. So we were able, after I got on board, it took us another 12 months to get up and running. But they've been trying 6 years before that. And the integration, like I said, Michelle, there you go. Thank you. It's okay. So that's why you use a tool to do an API integration. You can also do it via scripting. You can write PowerShell scripts to take the information from your source system and go and create identities. There's multiple ways to make that work. Like it could, whether it's semi-automated, fully automated, or fully manual. Does that help? And then as far as for somebody who's starting, for somebody who's wants to start their own business, an entrepreneur in cybersecurity, I am not the expert on that, but I can give that some thought if you reach out to me, because I literally was just in another group 2 weeks ago where 2 women had started their own business, and very impressive. Like, I was like in awe of these 2 women. I'm not there yet, but so I can't give you any tips, but Eileen is actually a really good person to talk to about how to even start up a business. She has been doing this since the age of like 16. So she is a really good resource as to how to get it up and running. I can help you get the connections made, but how to actually do that, whether you do an S Corp, LLC, but as a female owned organization, you are already at an advantage.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Judy.
Yeah, I started my first business when I was 16 because my parents said they wouldn't pay to send a girl to college. So, and I have an IQ of 144 and was top of my class of a class of 950 something students. So I figured I probably should think about going to college. So, so I started my first business to put myself through school. So I'm happy to give any of you guys advice on starting a business. That's a whole different discussion we could have.
Thank you. Thank you, Eileen.
I have a question. First of all,
Sure.
Thank you, Judy, for sharing your experience with us. I am a non-technical intern here. I am more interested in cyberspace law and international relations side of cybersecurity. I know that there are not many chances for me outside of NGOs and international organizations. But if I wanted to just work in the private sector one day, how do you think I can get involved in the private sector?
With being a lawyer and have the legal background?
Not legal background. I have studied international relations and I'm going to study security and international law, but I wouldn't consider myself as a lawyer because the things that we are studying is mostly focused on the security studies and not the law side of it.
Okay, so that one's a tough one. Eileen, have you introduced him to, oh my gosh, from Truvantis. I just drew a complete blank.
Jared Montoya.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what? So Mehmet, if you want to, I've asked you to link, connect with every single person on our think tank via LinkedIn. One of those people, his name is Jared Montoya, and he started out, he was in the military, then he became a lawyer, and then he went after his cybersecurity degree. So I'm sure we can get an informational interview set up and he can give you some suggestions and tips. And, going to work for one of the large international companies that need people all over is probably, Michelle, I know 3M has people working in 100 countries, right?
Right.
So Mehmet, go ahead and connect with Jared Montoya via LinkedIn.
Eileen, can you please text his name?
Michelle, can you put yourself on mute? Thank you. I'm not sure why we get a feedback every time.
Can you please text his name through the chat section, please?
And just tell him Eileen said to ask you to schedule time for a FaceTime or a Zoom interview, and I'll send him a note too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eileen.
He's a great resource for that, to be able to guide you as to where you could take your skills and your expertise. But they are exactly right. These larger international organizations, whether it's IBM, 3M, Medtronic, there's a lot of international organizations where they're looking for that type of talent, and to be able to understand and help them project from a strategic perspective.
I was more like considering international relations such as UN or NATO. I hope one day, why not? But let's see.
Okay, so for that, Sean Costigan, as well as and Mark Ritchie. So all 3 of those have international connections. So I will send an email to all 3 of them and see if we can get you an interview. Maybe one of these with the 3 of them.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you,
Michelle. Maybe we could ask Jared to do one of these too, because
it would be fun.
Yeah, I had actually reached out to him, Eileen, and I haven't heard anything back yet. So
I'll get on it.
Thank you. All right, we have about 7 more minutes of Judy's time. Any other questions that you may have for her.
Yeah, I just got a quick one. So, Judy, do you have like any recent interesting stories from your work that you can actually share with us or no?
We always have interesting stories. Which ones can I? That's the beauty of being in information security, honestly, is never are 2 days ever the same. You will see things, and part of being in like a red team or a blue team is really perfecting your skills and understanding how people try to hide things. And so, and I mean, they really do. They try to hide things. And from an insider threat program, you rely on your tools to be able to detect when data is trying to leave your organization. And there are tools out there. Code 42 is Code 42 Insider is an amazing tool. Gives you, I call it breadcrumbs, but it gives you the trail of when somebody tries to take a piece of information outside the organization and you catch them. And they say, well, that was my family picture. It was in my personal directory. And you sit down with them and you go, okay, it was in your personal directory under family pictures, under 2022 vacations, under Florida, but the file name was called passwords123.xls. And with that tool, you could actually go back and demonstrate that it originated in their C drive under documents, under important information. So you can see where they've tried to hide it and tried to say, oh, you didn't, because what they did is they took it and they moved it from one location to another. And then, sorry, my light's going dim. And then tried to, which means I need to move around, which then they tried to send outside the organization. But they said it was in my personal directory. It was my personal information. They don't realize that until you bring in show them the data, and then they go, oh, we have a lot of those kind of fun conversations. We had a situation a couple years ago in a prior life where we were monitoring our wireless network our wired network, which you are required to do for compliance reasons. And we couldn't figure out why this one device kept showing up like every other week at 7 p.m. And it was called, like Galaxy 25. And we're like, where is this coming from? We couldn't figure it out. And I said, okay, the only people that are in the office at that time are cleaning people. And we have cameras, we had cameras in our office at that time. And so we turn the cameras on and we don't sit and watch our cameras. Like we don't just sit there and stare at our cameras all the day. We just use them for forensics if we have to. We also all had people that would come to the door that would ring the doorbell and we'd have to let them in. And so we kind of just sat in front of the cameras one night when we were at home and we were watching and all of a sudden we saw it pop on our network. So we started checking the cameras and we figured it out, but this literally took us like 2 weeks to figure this out. We found out it was a cleaning lady that was coming in, and this is where we found out we had a gap in our network access controls, because they were coming in and they had an adapter for their phone and they would take it to charge up their phone using our adapter. And then they would get on our corporate network and then they would do their WhatsApp calls while they were in our office. And so, but it took us a while to figure it out because it was so sporadic and you can't until you figure out that pattern of what's going on and then trying to understand trying to figure out who's in the office at that time. We had to look at our badge readers, have to see if it was just, we have to go back in time to say, when did it start showing up that it became a problem? And then once we discovered it, then we had to start to figure out what was that person doing and if they were doing anything nefarious, were they trying to take anything? And it was totally innocent. The person was just trying to charge their phone. But it's things like that sometimes kind of could create an all hands on deck. We've had a few instances where in my current role where we call them customers behaving badly, where customers don't have their appropriate configuration into us and they start feeding us a bunch of garbage, which floods our network, makes it look like we're under attack. And then it takes us, a little time to figure it out. And then we have to go back to the customer and say, you need to fix this. And most of our customers are amazing and they fix it within 30 days. We do have one customer that we've been dealing with for a year, and that's been very, very frustrating because it really puts my team all hands on deck when it happens. And then we find out, oh, it's just this customer again. And we can't shut them off because there's a patient safety issue if we shut them off. So we have to be very careful.
Very interesting. Thank you for that.
Okay.
And it's really hard to talk about some, it's really hard to talk about some of the situations because as a CISO, you can't really talk about that.
Well, thank you so much, Judy. Great conversation, and interns, thank you so much for your questions. And as Eileen and I, and you even heard Judy say this, please connect with Judy and all the other think tank members if you haven't already done so, because Judy and the other members are just a great source for networking, asking questions and whatnot. So please take advantage of this awesome opportunity.
Please do.
And thank you.
Yep. Thank you. It was great meeting everybody. Take care. See you soon.
Thank you.
Judy.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye.
Mehmet,
Bye.
I've already
Thank you.
sent off an email to Mark, Richie, Sean Costigan, and Jared to try to get a meeting together for you, and we'll invite the other interns if they want to join us.
Thank you so much, Alan.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks,
you guys have a
Michelle.
good day.
Putting
You're
together
welcome.
For all
another
being
great
here.
session. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for joining us today at the Cybersecurity Summit podcast. See you next week. We invite you to join our Cyber Pro community on LinkedIn at Cybersecurity Summit.